Left corner, Collison, go to the basket, spin to Griffin, in traffic, fire and miss! 6 seconds to go, Clippers by 2, Thunder have no timeouts left. Westbrook for 3 in the win, spins out, the Clippers won't go, Clippers win! Westbrook a shot for the lead, Ibaka a shot for the tie. The Clippers earn an incredible 101-99 victory, as improbable a win as you're ever going to see.
One of the most amazing basketball games I've seen. We'll dig deep into that, plus a bunch of draft news. I've been watching Wiggins. We'll look at that. Coaching carousel news, as well as the dominoes expect to start falling this week. And we start college week on our coaches' names. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip Off. Hello, hope you're well. Hope everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day, particularly the mothers out there. I am David Locke. That was... we've got a lot to talk about, so let me walk this through again, how it's going to work today. Thanks so much for tuning in wherever you may be. We're going to look at some of the latest college news on the draft. We'll dig deep in last night's action, though I'm behind on Indiana, Washington. I'll catch up on that today. Then film study is going to be the dueling matchup between Chris Paul and Blake Griffin at point guard, then with an add-on of Chris Paul, Blake Griffin pick and roll, and the different ways OKC tried to cover it. Now none of them worked along the way on that. And then we'll start our college coach will come before that. So we'll look at Bobby Hurley today. What? Haven't heard that name. Maybe we should have. Let's talk about whether he should be a candidate or not. So that's what's coming up. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's dig in. First off, I've been watching Andrew Wiggins a tremendous amount here. I'm on my 4th game of Wiggins. A few things jump out to me. One is just how, I would say, how poorly he's used. You know, the college, the last time he's going to average 16 points a game is in college. He'll average a lot. His first step is amazing. However, I have not seen him make a catch-and-shoot jumper yet in 3 games that I've watched. I'm going to start my 4th, and hopefully he hits one in that. So he's not flawless, and particularly after watching just the insanity of the Clippers-Oklahoma City Thunder game, and then to veer into watching the college game and just how dramatically different it is. And as excited as we are about these guys, I think that it was eye-opening to me about just how the jump they're still going to have to take. None of Wiggins, Parker, and Embiid all sitting out of the combine. What's a little disturbing about this, and it's not unexpected though, is that in the case of Parker and Embiid, there's a serious concern in regards to injury. Parker missed much of his senior year just 2 years ago due to a foot injury. He is a little overweight. You better know your stuff on that one. You know, Brandon Roy was red flagged in a lot of drafts and turned out to be right. You got a great run on him, but if that's your franchise piece, that's largely the difference between why you pick somebody 1, 2, or 3. Embiid's back is an obvious issue that needs to be straightened out. So teams have got to get their info on that, and you hope this isn't a sign that they're not going to give you that info along the way. That would be very discouraging if that's the case, and I think very hard for teams. I think this could be as we come off the NFL draft, I think this could be a very exciting NBA draft because I'm watching Wiggins, and I could see where someone doesn't take him 1 or 2 and lets him go 3. I also could see where you take him 1. I also could see where the injury concerns on Parker and Embiid mean you take Wiggins 1. I think the first 3 in this draft could end up being very much largely based on what happens 8 days from now at the draft lottery, but also maybe not known until draft night. News in the NBA usually gets out a little bit, but this one could be a little bit of a mystery. I mean, if you're sitting at 3, you're feeling good because you'll get 1 of the 3, but I think there's a chance you could get any of the 3 as well in the way this draft is playing out. So we'll see. I'll dig into Parker next, and then Embiid. I've been watching, and some of it's beautiful and some of it's disturbing. He has begun to throw some passes as the season went on. Early on, when I kept an eye on him, he wasn't throwing any passes at all. On the coaching front of things, it is expected and rumored that Steve Kerr, Knicks deal will get done. So the first domino falls here this week. I think the second domino falls shortly thereafter, which is going to be Van Gundy to the Warriors. And then we get into now we get into an interesting circumstance. Let's assume Frank Vogel, they've won that series, so that he's going to be safe. I don't know what happens with Scott Brooks in Oklahoma City, and I guess that's the only area where maybe Van Gundy holds out and waits on that. But I'd be surprised if Scott Brooks gets fired. I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure we all understand what he's dealing with all the time. And I think as you dig into this, you'll see he's making more adjustments than the general media is giving him credit for. There's this viewpoint that's being spewed right now on Brooks that he's just standing around doing nothing and not making it. And I think that's very unfair. The Lakers are going to be a long search, and I think they're going to go big names along the way. And I almost feel like they're over in this other area of the process that they have. The one question is, after they search their Roy Williams and their Mike Krzyzewskis and all these other names that they want to go after, do they end up with Byron Scott, and does Kyrie Irving come with Byron Scott at some point in time on the Lakers? So, keep an eye on that. Minnesota's job's out there. A lot of people thought it was going to be Fred Hoiberg, including myself, and I would have thought that might have happened by now, but maybe that domino falls here quickly as well. And then you start looking at Utah. So, if Van Gundy and Kerr are gone, then I kind of feel like, unless I'm missing someone, of the three experienced head coaches, you're talking Nate McMillan, who's still active and involved in Indiana and maybe for some time. You're talking about George Karl and Lionel Hollins, and you've got to decide, whether any of those three fit your culture and what you're trying to do. And so that's kind of your first tier of previous not best, but previous head coach. Then your next tier goes into this group that we've talked a large part about this minor league experienced head coach, and somebody who's got either college or minor league experience as a head coach that you're looking at. Then you have the offshoot of that, which is the European experience head coach, the Messina or the Blatt. And then the final one is kind of, we'll dig in here, is kind of either, I guess there's another tier, which is you're just assistant that doesn't have any head coaching experience. That's a hard one for me to see that the Jazz head down that road. But really, and there's not that many guys on that road. There is those guys are Longobardi, who's getting a lot of talk in Phoenix, and then Fizdale in Miami are probably the top guys there. But again, Fizdale you can't talk to for some time in the process along the way. And then our final ones that we'll talk about this week is that college coach who you think is ready for the NBA. And there are 6 college coaches who have pro experience as a player that you might talk to. Hoiberg, Ollie, Tony Bennett, Billy Donovan, Bob Hurley, Danny Marley, and Danny Manning. So that's actually 7. All right, let's go to what happened in the final minutes of that game last night. Here's the real thing that happened that I think is getting lost in much of the discussion about what happened with Scott Brooks' offense last night. At the 10:49 mark, Chris Paul switches on to Kevin Durant, and on the very first possession from the top, Chris Paul steals the ball from Durant and takes it the other way for a layup. Now, Durant at 7 feet tall and Chris Paul at 6'1". Now the dribble has been eliminated from any option that you have for Kevin Durant in this game. He dribbles the ball twice in the entire game in the final 10:49 of the game because he can't dribble. So you can't ISO him on the wing anymore. You can't ISO him at the top. If you want to run baseline screens for him, which seems like a lot of people are talking about, and types of things of that nature, that's great, but all you're getting is a 22-foot fadeaway jumper. The idea that largely 2 things that I think Scott Brooks was trying to do, one of which was run a pick and roll with Durant and Westbrook, and it was awful, and the other is isolate Durant at the elbow so he can get close to the rim on a single dribble. That happened twice. He's 1 for 2 on those shots. The one was off balance, and the thing that blows that up is the Clippers double team it a bunch. And they bring the double, and Durant is without the ability to back out of a double team on the dribble because he's going to get it stolen. The floor spacing is screwed when you're at the elbow on that. So, we can dig into this a little bit here, but there are some reasons to why what happened. At the 8:30 mark, they go to the Durant left wing isolation. He's double teamed and turns it over. At 7, the next possession, they go to a Westbrook post up off a Durant give. So they go to Durant at the elbow. He goes to Westbrook on a post-up. It's a nice play. He finds Ibaka who gets fouled. Why they went away from this would be my complaint. The next possession, Westbrook posts up at the 7-10 mark, and Ibaka misses an 18. He passes out Ibaka's open 18-footer. I almost think, and this is hard to do, Paul is face guarding Durant so badly, and the Paul matchup on Durant is creating mismatches that you almost play 4-on-4. You hate to let your MVP get out of the game, and Brooks would get killed for that. But re-watching, I think that might have been the answer. Now they try the pin down to get Durant at the elbow. The picks that were freeing Durant were terrible, and Chris Paul was staying on it. But Durant gets it at the elbow. Westbrook cuts. Nice pass by Durant. Westbrook goes up on Blake Griffin. Griffin makes a nice defensive play or fouls him, depending on which team you're rooting for. And they don't get anything out of it. But now, off the isolation, that actually is a pretty good set. Westbrook goes coast to coast on the next play, gets fouled. Now they try something new. They go kind of what I was saying before, which is, all right, wait a sec. If they're going to face guard Durant, let's get him out of there. Westbrook goes high pick and roll with Ibaka, turns the corner, lays it up and in, and I'll show you that play later because it's a different issue I want to talk about. Well, that's beginning to work. Next play again, Durant comes by on a fake pick and roll, clears. Westbrook goes high pick and roll with Ibaka, gets to the rim and misses. So suddenly, now for the last 5 plays, you've gone away from Durant entirely. He hasn't gotten any action at all here, but on the other end, you've gotten you've received you've committed a turnover. You've got 2 free throws. You missed a 17-footer. You got a layup and you got to the rim. You're not terrible, but I don't think you can just go away from Durant. And I think this is where Scott Brooks got caught. At the 5-minute mark, it's clear to me now he's gone 4 minutes without Durant doing anything. I think he feels like he's got to get Durant back engaged in the game. He's your MVP. You can't just go away from him. So they go Westbrook, Durant, pick and roll. It's an ugly play. Durant gets 1 dribble off of it and misses. They do it the next play. Again, it's a 15-footer for Westbrook. And he misses. The next one, he makes it. The next one's a Westbrook-Durant pick and roll that Westbrook pulls from 17 and misses. So they now go make an adjustment. They go for 3 straight plays with the Westbrook-Durant pick and roll, and they only get 1 bucket in those 3. Now Scott Brooks goes out of that. All right, so he's tried in this time, as much as everybody's talking about he's not trying anything, he went Durant ISO left wing, didn't love what he got. ISO right wing, didn't love what he got. Went to the Westbrook, took it up, took Durant out of the game, got something. Then went to the pick and roll, got very little. Now you have 3 minutes left in the game. You're on the ropes. Where are you going? Ask yourself that, because that's what Scott Brooks has to decide at this point. Where are you going? You've tried these 3 things. None of them are working great. He goes back to the Durant isolation on the wing. He's scared to dribble. He's scared to dribble, so he immediately double-teamed and throws it away again. Now, on a sort of bad pick and roll, Westbrook drives to the basket with 2:33 left. And I don't have in my notes whether he makes that or not. He misses. Rebound out of bounds. Durant scores off an inbound. All right, so now where? I think actually at this point you've got to hide Durant and go. I'm saying you go away from the MVP, which is really contrary to everything that you ever believe in the game after rewatching it. Instead, they go Durant at the elbow again. He makes 1 dribble, his 2nd dribble in the final 10 minutes, and he scores off a tight, bad look. Westbrook goes isolation, coast to coast, and scores. And then with 38 seconds left, they go back to the elbow. Durant's doubled. He passes to Westbrook on a nice look. And Westbrook misses the jumper. So they did try a bunch of things. I'm not. The real thing to me is how bad that pick and roll was, because they weren't even switching it, which jumps out at me. In fact, maybe let's start. Actually, we'll start an elongated. Actually, let me take your questions and then we'll start an elongated film session, film study. We'll do that. Taylor Cottrell, if OKC doesn't win it all, what do you think of this scenario? Westbrook for our top pick if he's top 3, along with Cantor favors Burke combo, maybe a future pick allows us to restock and get our star. Not if OKC is willing to blow it up, possible. But I would think there'd have to be a riff between Westbrook and Durant, and I don't think there is in that. All right, I wasn't going to go here yet, but let's go back. Let's do that. Let's take a look at. Let me see if this comes up. Let me see if we can take a look at how bad that pick and roll is. Here, I'll show you what worked for OKC, and then we can look at. This actually is not going to be a bucket, but this play worked, basically. Sorry.
Throw miss. 7-point game with 5:21 remaining.
Okay. So this is going to be the Durant. This is where they clear Durant out. So Durant's right here. He clears out and takes Chris Paul with him. So instead you get what's really becomes a three-man game over here. Russell Westbrook off a Baca pick and roll. And this is actually something I want to talk about. If you, and I'll show this. I'll stay with my theme on this and integrate the other thing I want to talk about. You have got to have a point guard that can go to the basket and score in this league. Because what happens here is, because everybody's so concerned about the corner three now, if you run a high pick and roll, your point guard's going to get a lane to the basket. Reggie Jackson's wide open. Collison's not guarding him. Chris Paul has been pulled out here on Durant. Russell Westbrook now can get to the rim. He misses this shot, but he can get to the rim without a lot of difficulty, frankly. And that's here. Let me go show you the other one that I was going to show you on this, and then we'll go to Chris Paul. Then we'll go to the Chris Paul pick and roll. But this is where you watch this. You have got to have. This is where the Jazz have to make a really strong evaluation on Trey of whether he can do this. You have got to have a point guard. This is where smart defensive.
Good job there.
That can just get to the rack, because teams are hugging the corner three at such a rate. So here's the same play basically as we just saw. This is where Durant clears out, takes Chris Paul with him. Now it's a high pick and roll. Westbrook turns the corner on Griffin, and Matt Barnes just does not want to leave Caron Butler in the corner. So Russell Westbrook gets all the way to the basket for an easy layup. You're going to see this now. We're going to get into our film study, but there's the play that was working so well for the Thunder, and for whatever reason they went away with it because you got to engage Durant. But the pick and roll by Westbrook and Durant was just, they ran it 3 straight times, was just bad. Here, I'll show you one of them, because this wasn't what I intended for film study, and I don't think we all want to be here all day.
Oh, gorgeous move.
So Mike Breen screaming, yelling. I'll turn that down a little bit. So here is going to be what was Scott Brooks' next answer, which was the Westbrook-Durant pick and roll. And they get into it very late, and then it's not well done. Though the only thing I'd say is Westbrook could probably make a pass here to Durant if he wanted to. But Durant's not making himself very available. If he took 2 steps this direction, he's available. It's a bad pick. Chris Paul doesn't really stop Westbrook. No one's attacking off it. It's as though they're lost in what they're trying to do. I mean, Durant's close to open right here, frankly. But Westbrook doesn't go there, and instead rises into a 20-foot jumper. That's just a bad possession of a team that kind of doesn't look like they know what they want to do. But let's get to the fun stuff. We're going to watch. Here is officially film study. We're going to watch 6 plays, if I may, on the pick and roll plays between Chris Paul and Kevin and Blake Griffin, and just kind of walk us through the final minutes of OKC's and the Clippers' battle defensively. We'll jump through some of it, but it starts with a dribble, a handoff that was brilliant, and you can catch here where OKC has their first kind of defensive problem in the game. So this is going to be a dribble handoff. Blake Griffin gets it, or not even dribble handoff. It's a handoff to Blake. Chris Paul fakes going left, which is this is the little things that veterans do. That step you're seeing right there to the left is huge, because now Westbrook thinks it's off a pick. He comes back. Westbrook's a step late. Blake gives him the ball. And if we walk through this slowly. It will buffer. So it's going to let me go slow motion. Chris Paul comes around to the right. Ibaka steps over. And again, here's this game. Reggie Jackson gets all the way down the paint, but with Jamal Crawford there, they're panicked about the corner three. Ibaka's kind of guarding this. Instead, Chris Paul, easy layup because Caron Butler doesn't want to leave Danny Granger, which is insane. And you got to wonder why they did that. But there's the easy layup. So there's the first. This was off the handoff. First play. Caron Butler doesn't want to leave that corner. Reggie Jackson doesn't really want to leave that corner. Ibaka's shading over. Now, Chris Paul sees this, and Chris Paul decides, I'm going to annihilate you here for a little bit. And Chris Paul now in the next 3 possessions scores and completely kills the Thunder in this stretch. Here it comes again. Same exact setup. Fake, that's non-action basically. That's false action. And here comes the pick and roll, curling back, beautifully set up by Chris Paul. Ibaka hedges over. Caron Butler will not leave Danny Granger in the corner for the easy short corner pass. Ibaka doesn't really want to commit to him. Jackson digs in this time. You'll notice, but that's Darren Collison out there. And Chris Paul for an easy layup. They took away Blake Griffin. They brought the third guy in. Chris Paul, though, Ibaka is not committing to it enough, and so Chris Paul gets his way. And Chris Paul will continue to do this one more time on Ibaka as well. This is a combination of completely brilliant point guard play and defense that's a little confused. So we set it up again, exact same thing. Ibaka slides over, Caron Butler on Danny Granger. I mean, it's the exact same setup we had before. What's interesting here is Durant, by the way, is now guarding Jamal Crawford on this. And Westbrook doesn't want to switch onto Blake because he'd be too small. And Chris Paul, this time Ibaka, having been burned the last 2 times, stays close to Blake Griffin. So what does Chris Paul do? He just goes all the way to the rim for an easy layup. Scott Brooks calls a timeout and adjusts his defense, as we'll see here. With 5:51 left, they adjust the defense in the first adjustment of this process. He changes who's guarding whom, and they're just going to switch the pick and roll now. Now Durant is matched up on Chris Paul. Not because they really think Durant's going to guard Chris Paul, because he's going to end up on Blake Griffin on the switch. Same exact play again. There it is, and watch how it changes this time. Now Ibaka stays on Chris Paul. Blake Griffin goes to the post. Chris Paul recognizes this. Brilliant point guard play, retreats out, gives to Granger to set up the post up for Blake Griffin in the post. Okay, they've taken away the pick and roll. Chris Paul is such a good point guard, he recognizes what's going on. Blake Griffin gets it in the post, and Durant fouls him. Blake Griffin goes to the free throw line. That's the same exact thing that happens on the next play. Blake Griffin makes one of the 2 free throws, and on the play after that, Chris Paul, they switch it, and Chris Paul misses a 17-footer over Ibaka. So actually this is now working a little bit. They've got 3 possessions. They only have 3 points off of it. It's worked out fairly well. Fast break opportunity for the for the Clippers gets 2 free throws. Then they have maybe the play of the game. They have a major defensive breakdown where Crawford just drives to the basket for an easy layup. It's still a 5-point game in the game. And somehow the Thunder stop getting back defensively. Westbrook misses a 20-footer. Paul rebounds, finds Griffin, who goes to the basket hard, misses, gets his own rebound, lays it up and in, and you now have a 3-point game. Durant turns it over. Collison gets the driving layup. It's now a 1-point game. Scott Brooks has actually made the adjustment to slow down the Clippers' offense, but the Clippers follow it by getting 4 straight open court opportunities, which is just, you can't let happen in this game. So now let's go to the next one, where we're back into the half court. And it's time to make an adjustment. I think this is the right play. It is. Okay. So let's see what happens. Let's see how we're matching up. Durant was going to guard Chris Paul. Blake Griffin is waiting there. They fake the pick and roll. They swing it back out to Collison, who penetrates on Reggie Jackson. They just completely surprise the Thunder. Interesting move here. They just simply, everyone is so waiting for the pick and roll between Blake, and you watch where Reggie Jackson is. The reason Collison's able to beat him is Reggie Jackson has slid down to play this possession complete on, if I back it up, you might be able to see it better. Get out of the slow-mo. So Chris Paul brings it up, and watch Reggie Jackson right here. He's sliding all the way over. And so they pass to Collison, and Blake Griffin sets a back pick on Reggie Jackson, which doesn't actually get done very well because Collison goes too fast. But it's a pretty interesting play, and Collison's able to actually get fouled on it. But it's a nice twist there by Doc Rivers in this matchup. Okay, you've actually stumped us and solved what we're going to do. And now here's my counter to it. If you're bringing all these guys over doing this, I'm going to set the backside on it. Pretty interesting play. Our final one we want to look at is this Blake Griffin layup, which is kind of the final adjustment in all of these little pick and roll games that are taking place here. So Durant has scored. It's a 3-point game here. How do you get the pick and roll with Blake? You're not going to live on that Collison play. So they call it the play. Now, instead of having, actually, I want to show you two more. Instead of having the dual horns waiting, they're just going to run it right side pick and roll. Again, here you have Westbrook is now on Granger. And what's switched is Durant is now guarding Collison. Cephalosha has switched over to Chris Paul. Run it in slow motion. There's the pick. Ibaka holds. I don't know who's supposed to guard Blake Griffin, but in this case it's Reggie Jackson. He's just too small. And it's worth noting, Reggie Jackson just completely leaves Jamal Crawford on this play. That's how they're going to adjust it, is that now he's leaving. I don't know why it wouldn't be Durant leaving off Collison to hang back like they did earlier, but here's great coming up is brilliant recognition. They suddenly see that, and here's our final and Blake layup because Reggie Jackson's just too small coming in on that wing to affect that. But now, OKC still up by 134 left. Chris Paul, and now they see, all right, here's Reggie Jackson. Durant is back over on Collison. Cephalosha's on Chris Paul. They know that Reggie Jackson is the help man as they double Chris Paul. So what do? They bring Jamal up. Here's the slow-mo. Blake Griffin rolls. Reggie Jackson goes with him because that's the guy. Chris Paul finds Jamal Crawford back up top. That's way too much time for Jamal Crawford. Bang, Clippers lead. Brilliant changes along the way by the Clippers, by Chris Paul. I mean, you got to have a point guard that's just awesome on that. It all starts with those 3 plays where Chris Paul goes to the basket, opening up those opportunities that is forcing every adjustment by the Clippers. You've got to have a point guard that attacks the basket like that, or none of it works. Once he is doing that, then you're able to suddenly, then the next adjustment, which was a good one, was the switch, which got Durant in foul trouble. Now, but Durant's got in foul trouble, so now Scott Brooks has to go out of that adjustment. They get the transition possessions, and they start to bring Reggie Jackson's third guy. He's just too small, and the Clippers then exploit it with the Jamal Crawford 3. Fascinating work of basketball and X's and O's in a great game. Thank you much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. Oh, wait, I didn't never do Bobby Hurley. Oh, I did it in the wrong order. I'll do it tomorrow. Sorry. Actually, we talked about the college coach a little bit. I should do it. All right, I'll do Bobby Hurley now. I mistimed it. This is kind of a hidden name I've never heard. I'm not sure that he's really a viable viable candidate, but I think it's interesting to look at when you look at his bio for a second. His father is one of the elite coaches in basketball at St. Anthony's. He goes to Duke, spends his 4 years there. He's selected by the Kings. He plays. He has problems. He becomes an assistant at Wagner for a year, an associate head coach at Rhode Island, and is now the head coach at Buffalo. He just had his first year there. They were very good. They were 19-10. They won their conference. This would be incredibly early and a stunning call. But he's 42 years old. He's got a great coaching background. He's probably going to be a head coach. He was hired by the 76ers as a scout for a while. He's got some, he's got that NBA background. Remember, if you remember the story, he gets in a terrible car accident where he was not wearing a seatbelt, suffered life-threatening injuries, and it kind of derailed his career. And I believe he may have had, I thought he had, that led to some real off-court soul searching. I know he got into horse racing for a while and things like that. So I don't know if that's he had a DWI charge along the way. I do remember that, and he had some financial problems along the way. So I mean, his life has not been pretty. It's an interesting, but I don't know. I think it's a large reach on my part. But that's the kind of thing what you're looking at. You're looking to look around and find little coaches along the way who might have a special thing and be able to develop talent. You'd have to know an awful lot about him. You'd have to have an insight that he's special because he has had some of those issues along the way. But Bobby Hurley is at Buffalo. That's a college coach with NBA experience. We'll look at some more of those this week as well. That wraps up our tip-off today.